Good morning. In the midst of allegation, the vote on the confirmation of Prime Minister nominee Lee Won-gu is set to take place on Monday. Danish police say the gunman in the Copenhagen shooting that killed 2 civilians and injured 5 police officers had a history of violence and weapons possession. With major economies loosening its monetary policies, what is Korea's central bank's next move, with Korea's benchmark interest currently at a historic low of 2%? And estimates show that more than 80% of the Korean population lived in apartment buildings. Get a look at the underlying factors behind the numbers on Korea Today, Monday, February 16th, 2015.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
And a good Monday morning, everyone. Welcome to Korea Today. I'm Kim Min-jung with Kim Young and Oh Jin-ju, who's back from a vacation. Welcome back.
Back for a short week.
Right. Another work week has begun here in Korea. Well, guess what? It's going to end tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. Perfect timing for you there, right? You have a week off, you come back, work 3 days, and get another 4 days off.
I should have took a day off today and tomorrow as well, but that's because the Lunar New Year holiday will start on Wednesday, and a lot of people are planning to travel overseas because, as I said, if you take today and tomorrow off, you can enjoy a 9-day holiday.
That's right. Many people have been taking advantage of this, but at the same time, there have been many people who are busy and getting ready for their trips back home. And estimates say there's going to be a lot of traffic, and that usually is the factor behind the numbers there when it comes to the Lunar New Year's holiday. So get ready for that, and we'll get your week off great. With first, we'll get to our top headline for this morning. Now, it seems that the National Assembly is set to vote on the confirmation of Prime Minister nominee Lee Won-gu this Monday afternoon, following the ruling and opposition parties' agreement to delay the vote last week. The former Saenuri Party floor leader has been surrounded with suspicions raised by the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy from dodging conscription and misreporting real estate assets to omitting parts of his annual wealth report, with the party urging the nominee to step down. The ruling Saenuri Party, which holds the majority at the assembly, say they will proceed with the vote in what is the Park Geun-hye administration's third attempt to replace incumbent Prime Minister Chung Hong-won. The previous 2 nominees both withdrew during the confirmation process. If the vote passes, the presidential office is expected to carry out a minor cabinet reshuffle, including current chiefs of staffs at the presidential office as early as Tuesday.
A former national security advisor has reportedly been named as Seoul's new ambassador to China. Sources say Kim Jang-soo, who also served as Seoul's defense chief under the Roh Moo-hyun administration, is likely to replace Kwon Young-se, who is the incumbent ambassador to Beijing in the first half of this year. Once appointed, it'll be the first time since the 2 countries established diplomatic ties in 1992 that an official with a military background will represent Korea in China. The 67-year-old had stepped down from his post as national security advisor in 2014 following controversial remarks regarding the sunken Seoul ferry. The South Korean ambassador to Russia, sources say, is also likely to be replaced by a senior foreign ministry official following the diplomatic confirmation procedures called agrément to respective countries.
Is Korea in a state of depression? Over 90% of Koreans seem to think so, and many expect current conditions to continue, according to a survey released Sunday. The Federation of Korean Industries says a poll by research of some 800 people over the age of 19 showed that 93.9% of the respondents feel the local economy is in depression, nearly half of which expect recovery to begin sometime after 2017. In the survey, 23.8% said they were hit hardest by inflation, with drop in income, household debt, post-retirement, and job security concerns following. In terms of inflation, 80% of those polled said they felt that the current rate of rising prices was higher than the government's estimate of 1.3%, with nearly 52% saying households will spend less this year compared to a year earlier.
Major economies around the world are continuing to loosen their monetary policies, which many analysts believe could lead to what they call an unspoken or an accidental currency war. And with Korea's central bank scheduled to set its key rate for this month tomorrow, all eyes in the country are now on whether the Bank of Korea will follow suit. For more on the details, we're now joined by Arirang News' Hwang Jae here in the studio. So, Jae, I'm not sure if we can call this a competition, but so many countries are jumping in to ease their monetary policies, either emerging economies or developed economies.
Right. And so far this year, 17 countries and the European Central Bank have eased their monetary policies either by lowering their key interest rates or introducing quantitative easing. And the move comes as the countries try to fight the threat of deflation by propping up ailing domestic economy. The latest move was taken by Sweden, which cut its key rate below zero just last week. Canada, Switzerland, and 11 emerging economies like India and China are also in this race. Now, pressure for further monetary easing by the Bank of Korea is piling up, but analysts say that it's unlikely that the central bank will take action tomorrow due to distortions from big national holidays. Take a look.
This month's monetary policy meeting is taking place right before the Lunar New Year holiday, and the central bank has not signaled a rate cut either, so it's likely that it will keep the rate unchanged for this month.
Analysts also cite the country's snowballing household debt problem as the reason for a rate freeze this month. The debt exceeded 1,000 trillion won, or roughly $900 billion last year, growing fast after the two rate cuts in the second half of last year and government deregulation measures to revitalize the real estate market. Additional rate cuts, they say, will accelerate such a trend. Korea's Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan also emphasized last week that it's more important to push through structural reforms than to debate over a rate cut. Korea's key interest rate currently stands at a historic low of 2%, not seen since the height of the global financial crisis in 2009. Still, analysts expect the Bank of Korea to cut the base rate down the road, citing sluggish domestic demand.
The Korean economy is not showing signs of momentum for a strong recovery so far this year, just like in the fourth quarter of last year. And to give a much-needed boost to the economy, the central bank is expected to cut the rate in April or May before the U.S. Federal Reserve starts to raise its key interest rate.
Korea's low inflation rate is also giving the central bank room to trim its key rate. The country's consumer prices grew at less than 1% for 2 straight months in January from a year earlier, while the inflation rate for all of 2014 stood at 1.3%, remaining the same from a year ago. Some analysts say, however, that the central bank would not join the global move of monetary easing as there's no clear sign the Korean won is strengthening.
So, what kind of a threat could this competitive monetary easing pose on the Korean economy?
Well, countries introducing monetary easing means that they're trying to devaluate their local currencies as a means to strengthen their price competitiveness in the global market. And with more than a dozen central banks introducing and injecting extra stimulus so far this year, Korea, which is heavily reliant on exports, is also under pressure to engage in this race, and Japan in particular has aggressively introduced a set of aggressive stimulus measures and posing a threat to local auto and electronics makers who are closely competing with their Japanese rivals. But because the Korean won is kept rather stable for now, there are analysts that believe the country's key rate will remain unchanged in the first half of this year, while many expect a rate cut in the first half of this year.
Right, that's because the pressure Korea is under to cut its rate is growing as you mentioned, the strengthening of the Korean won could burden the Korean economy even further. But is there any event that investors would want to keep an eye on that would affect the central bank's decision on cutting its key rate or
it will definitely
maintaining its key rate?
Right. It will definitely be the first quarter figures, growth figures for this year that will be announced in April. And if the actual figures fail to meet the central bank's growth forecast, analysts say it's likely that it will move for another rate cut, leaving the key rate below 2%.
So the monthly policy meeting will take place tomorrow on Tuesday. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. All right, Chia, thank you for that report this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning. It's time to run through the front pages of your newspapers. Now, plunging oil prices have been presenting a significant opportunity for many developing economies to strengthen their competitiveness. Now, Korea is also benefiting from the price decline since it is an oil importer. We'll take a closer look at this issue on 조선일보. And it's the top headline. It says low oil prices cause a $43 billion drop in domestic production costs. And the headline adds that this is a golden opportunity for investments to be made, falling oil prices giving investors a chance to leap forward. Now, benchmark oil prices, such as those set by Dubai and Western Texas Intermediate, have all fallen to the $60 range, and experts are predicting that such a decline is likely to continue for some time given the current supply and demand situation. If we go ahead and look at the sub-headlines, now if global oil prices remain at the $60 range, the Korean economy will see the effect of exports escalating by some $20 billion. And with the country no longer needing to spend so much money on buying foreign oil, it will earn more disposable funds to make investments. And the paper adds that the situation today is similar to that of 30 years ago, the middle of the 1980s, which experts stress is thus important for us all to take full advantage of this opportunity to create more rapid economic growth by implementing the right policy measures. And now let's turn to 동아일보 for a look at the top story here regarding the youth unemployment crisis. It says young job seekers surpass 1 million in number, and we'll take a close look at the article. The Daily is talking about job seekers between the age of 15 and 29, those currently without jobs, together with those getting ready for job interviews and exams. So the size of this group has surpassed the 1 million mark for the first time since 2006. In fact, within just the past 1 year, the number has jumped by 11%. And experts say that there is fear that the country's economic vitality will subside due to the young generation being unable to work with the harsh job market continuing. Now, more economy-related news. We'll go to 경향신문 for this headline. This is a forecast, and it reads, welfare expenditure for childcare and vulnerable groups stagnant for the next 35 years. And looking at these sub-headlines now, according to forecasts by a National Research and Development Institute called Korea Institute for Health and Social Affairs, expenditure on social welfare services for socially disadvantaged groups, including children, the disabled, and the elderly, will remain pretty much the same up until the year 2060. Thus, the paper criticizes the government's welfare restructuring reasoning recently announced by Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan to be rather mistaken and even useless. Now, speaking of welfare, we'll turn to the Mail Business newspaper for the top headline. It says, IMF advises on Korea's welfare without tax hikes. Now, amid all of this fuss within local political circles over whether or not welfare without tax hikes is possible or even realistic, the International Monetary Fund has suggested a solution on the matter. Now, following the recent annual policy conference with the Korean government, the IMF also met with the Daily in an exclusive interview to give their advice on this issue. Now, the IMF is giving 3 key advice. Number 1, to only apply welfare on sectors that are in essential need. Number 2, to reduce income tax deduction rather than increasing tax rates. And number 3, to seek for overall growth, even if it means increasing national debt. And that was a look at our local headlines this Monday. Now, following are the stock numbers from Friday.
Now, terror struck in the capital of Denmark over the weekend following a double attack, one at a free speech gathering and hours later at a synagogue. We'll connect with our Eunice Kim at the News Center for more on this story and other global headlines. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning.
We're learning more about the suspected gunman who police say acted alone in both of these strikes.
Yeah, that's right, Min-jung. The suspect has not been identified by name yet, but police say the 22-year-old was born in Denmark and was known to authorities for a history of violence and weapons possession. The chief of Denmark's intelligence agency did confirm that the man was on their watch list prior to these attacks and that they are now trying to determine whether he had a history of traveling to Syria or Iraq. They will have to work backwards now, though, now that the suspect, their lone suspect, was shot dead when he opened fire at officers who were monitoring an address in connection to the two shootings early Sunday. Investigators had tracked the man on CCTV cameras, and they believe it was him that opened fire at an arts cafe where Swedish cartoonist Lars Vilks was in attendance. Now, he is on Al-Qaeda's hit list after his caricature of the Prophet Muhammad as a dog was published in 2007. They believe the suspect was also responsible for the second attack at a synagogue. The Danish Prime Minister says the shooting was a politically motivated terrorist attack and promised to protect freedom of speech and the Jewish community in the country. Eurozone finance ministers will meet in Brussels later on this Monday to consider the future of Greece's bailout program. And ahead of it, thousands poured into the streets of Athens in anti-austerity protest. Police said the rally outside of the Parliament House drew some 20,000 people. Crowds held up banners reading, "Stop austerity, support Greece, change Europe," as they protested against austerity policies set by outside creditors that they said were impoverishing the people. Protests spread to other cities in Greece as well as cities beyond. In Paris, France, some 2,000 people showed solidarity against what they called the Goliath of finance as they marched through the city center.
All right, well, let's check in with the latest on Ukraine. A ceasefire is now in place, and I understand it is mostly holding, with emphasis on mostly.
Yeah, mostly holding. That is how it looks according to those on the ground, and also to the leaders of Germany and France, who, of course, had helped broker this truce. As the ceasefire kicked in early Sunday, correspondents on the ground said they had heard a noticeable de-escalation of shelling and artillery. The AFP, citing a military spokesman, did report that Ukrainian troops came under fire some 60 times in the early hours of that ceasefire. Now, the point of concern remains to be the strategic transport hub of Debaltseve, an area that pro-Russia separatists argue was theirs and exempt from the truce. A lot of fighting has been in this area, as well as some 8,000 Ukrainian soldiers are encircled there now, and their fate remaining unclear. Kiev's presidential office said the leaders of the four-way peace summit did hold a conference call on Sunday in which they agreed that the truce extends to that besieged town. And Min-jung analysts say the first 48 hours will be critical in determining the fate of this second Ukraine ceasefire.
All right, we'll have to keep an eye on that story. Thank you, Eunice.
You bet.
And coming up later, we'll look at videos that have gone viral in past weeks. A young man shares the beauty of Korea's traditional clothing, hanbok, by wearing it on his trip through Europe. And we'll show you how garbage is recycled into art. All of this and much more still ahead on Viral Feed.
A united approach to art from international artists, and for that, an exhibition has opened up at the Art Sunje Center. And joining us is Lee Myun-hee to talk more about it. Good morning.
Good morning. That's absolutely right. So the Art Sunje Center is no stranger when it comes to new and rather experimental artworks. So their most recent exhibition, this joint exhibition, has some works that may surprise you. Take a look.
Sometimes you have to look outside of the box, and you'll find art where you're least expecting it.
The Art Sunjae Center is one of Korea's leaders in current and experimental contemporary art. Their most recent experiment includes the rather unconventional. Here, smoking is not a pastime, but is instead part of the art. This piece by world-recognized artist Hee-man Chung takes the art experience to a whole new level.
Like reading a story changes your idea of reality, and in a way, by smoking inside the museum, it changes your relationship with the museum.
Also at the Art Sunjae Center on joint display is Discordant Harmony. The exhibition is in collaboration with the Goethe Institute and brings together 12 artists from 4 different countries: Korea, China, Taiwan, and Japan. These global artists aim to look at the relationships between countries in Asia, examined through art.
There's different types of art out there, and contemporary art is one of the arts that actually have different definitions and meanings that the artist wants to portray through his or her work.
Right.
Now, it needs a bit of interpretation sometimes, right?
Right. So, and to help you with that, they're actually holding a series of talks held by the various curators, artists, as well as specialists in the area. So the exhibition covers a range of different topics, anywhere from social issues, philosophical issues, cultural issues. So a lot of things to talk about, and they will all be addressed in these talks.
Okay, the name of the second exhibition, it seems rather interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Right, so with Discordant Harmony, the name of the exhibition, they actually have a meaning behind that. So they wanted to present this idea of it appears to be united front in Asia, but there are actually a lot of cultural diversities within Asia, which is a good thing, but also comes of some cultural rifts as well. And so they want to show, I guess, a storybook through Asia for the past 2 years through these contemporary artworks and these artists.
Okay.
And so through an artist's point of view.
All right, through an artist's point of view, and also it offers the interpretations through the artist's point of view, so you can get an answer on some of the questions that you have there. And thank you very much for that exhibition.
You're welcome.
Apartments. Every time you fly into Seoul, or if you've ever been to Seoul or other cities in Korea, you might have seen many of the high-rise apartments that do really seem out there. And you might have wondered why. Why are there so many apartments out there? Well, it seems that it's the most prevalent form of housing in the country. So we'll tell you why and uncover the history of apartments in Korea in Curious in Korea.
Trending online is a story of a Japanese man who visited Seoul over the weekend to thank a local policeman.
Right. Turns out that his son recently became a police officer himself because of a very special encounter he had in Korea some 10 years ago. We'll find out more about this story with our Seomi Sorang, who joins us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Yeah. So to tell the story, let's rewind back those 10 years. Back in 2005, the Japanese family came to Korea for a short vacation. The son was 9 years old at the time, and like many boys around that age, he thought the policeman looked cool and wanted a photo with the police car. So the father approached a policeman nearby and asked if they could take a photo. The policeman said sure, and he even took off his hat for the little boy.
Aww.
Now, when the little boy went back to Japan, he kept this photo on his desk and dreamt of one day becoming a policeman himself.
Wow.
And 10 years later, he did become a policeman.
Wow.
Just last month.
He's a handsome-looking police officer as well.
That's why you guys said, wow.
Wow.
So he became a policeman. Now he's very busy, getting ready and getting into things. So the father came all the way back to Korea on his son's behalf, and he looked for the policeman from 10 years ago to give this thank you letter.
So did the father find the local policeman?
He did. So the policeman is 34 years old now. So he was very young back then. He was only what?
Like 24?
Yeah, so he was a rookie as well. And he remembered the incident as soon as he saw the photo that the father brought. And he was very grateful. So this is a father with the photo looking for.
Oh, but no picture of them together this time.
Not this time.
Okay.
No. And he was very grateful that the father had come all the way over to Korea just to say thank you. Meanwhile, over in North Korea, photos of Kim Jong-un overlooking a construction site from his plane have been released. So here is Kim Jong-un overlooking at the Mire Scientist Street in Pyongyang, which will become a housing complex for scientists. Kim is said to have been very satisfied with the speed at which construction was taking place and urged workers to complete first stage of construction by April 15th, the birthday of his grandfather and founder of North Korea, Kim Il-sung.
And this plane, I believe, was the one that North Korea had recently bought from Ukraine.
It is. It's the AN-148 model made by Ukrainian Antonov company, and it's the one that Kim Jong-un is widely expected to use to go to Russia this coming May. And wrapping up, last week we talked about the North Pacific right whale that got stuck at a mussel farm. Well, that incident, caused a sudden spark of interest in the other types of whale that are found in Korean waters. According to experts, there are 30 different species, 7 of which are over 15 meters long. Many, such as the 33-meter-long blue whales, haven't been seen in recent years, so there's talk of removing them from the list of whales in Korea, but others, such as these minke whales, are frequently sighted.
So the North Pacific right whales, they weren't seen for like 40 years until they were discovered recently. So maybe the right whales might make their appearance soon.
Yeah, so nearly over 4, I think it was 41 years, so a bit over 4 decades, and they were almost removed from the list as well. So, like you said, maybe if we wait long enough, the other rarer whales, such as the blue whales and the grey whales,
oh,
they
right,
might
the blue
make
whales.
an appearance as well.
Come visit us, please. All right. Well, thank you so much, Misorang.
You're welcome.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2015 Four Continents Figure Skating Championships, where despite high expectations, Yeonha's kids are far from being the next figure queens just yet. Now, with the latest single-free skating program taking place on Sunday, the 18-year-old Park So-yeon struggled a bit on the jumps as she scored a 110.28 points for a combined 163.75, good for 9th place overall. Meanwhile, Kim Hae-jin would finish off with a combined 147.80 points overall for an 11th place finish, as the two teenagers finished the event with a rather disappointing result. Meanwhile, the top podium spot will go to U.S. figure skater Polina Edmonds, who finished first with 186.82 points overall, with Satoko Miyahara and Rika Hongo of Japan finishing second and third, respectively. Now, more disappointment on ice, this time over in the ISU Single Distances Speed Skating Championship, where Lee Sang-hwa went after her third straight gold medal in the 500-meter event. But it seems like her knee issue continues to be a problem for the two-time Olympic gold medalist, as she would finish with a combined time of 76.004 seconds after 2 races and would finish 5th overall. Now, the 5th place finish is her first non-medal finish in the event in 7 years. Now, with her knee problems more and more apparent now, her coaching staff might opt into shutting her down for the season and go for the surgery if her condition worsens. Now, Lee Sang-hwa might have fallen short in getting her third straight gold medal during the Single Distances Speed Skating Championships over the weekend, but sensational Son Heung-min found the net 3 times over the weekend as he nears a record set by the legendary Cha Bum-gun. Now, with the 23-year-old scoring his 12th, 13th, and 14th goal of the season in Bayer Leverkusen's 5-4 loss against Wolfsburg this weekend, not only did he break his personal season's goal record, but is on the brink of breaking the Bundesliga single-season goal record for a Korean player. Now, with the legendary Cha Bum-gun scoring 19 goals during the 1985-1986 season, Son Heung-min is just 5 goals away from the record as he continues his hot streak over in Germany. Now, a legend in the sporting world can be born in many different ways, and one of the ways is basically winning more than anyone else, which is why Ulsan Mobis Phoebus head coach Yoo Jae-hak is already being called a legend, despite still being active. With head coach Yoo and his Ulsan Mobis Phoebus facing off against the Seoul SK Knights on Sunday, Mobis will win the game 70-60, giving him his 500th victory of his career. The 52-year-old, who made his coaching debut back in 1998, is the first KBL coach to reach the 500-win mark and currently leads the KBL with the most games coached with 884. Now, with a combined record of 500 wins and 384 losses, he's also second in the KBL for winning percentage, behind KT's Jeon Chang-jin. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Simon O, and you know what that means? It's time for Viral Feed. Now, it is just a couple of days until 설날, or the Korean Lunar New Year. It is one of the most important holidays, or traditional holidays here in Korea, and I, for one, cannot wait because it is a great chance to get to see friends and family that we've not seen for a while. But that's still a couple of days away, so to keep us busy as we wait, we have a lineup of amazing stories. So let's get right into them. Now, I did mention 설날 as a traditional holiday, and one of the things that makes it really special is the traditional hanbok clothing that many of us wear for that holiday. Now, we all wear them from time to time, but here's a look at some people who have taken it a step further. Have a look. With eye-catching colors and lines, Korea's traditional hanbok play a major role in introducing Korea's culture to the world. In fact, as you can see here, a couple of years ago, a group of college students made a splash when they publicized Korean culture throughout Europe dressed in traditional hanbok. But recently, a new video has popped up on YouTube featuring a young man touring Europe similarly attired. Now, here's my takeaway from this video. First of all, I love how seamlessly this traditional Korean clothing seems to blend with these old cities all over Europe. And the other thing that I really like is, as you can see here, it's not just this young man who's having a great time. To me, it seems like all the people he met along the way are also creating memories that they're not going to forget. Now, I'm told that he visited 11 cities in 4 countries throughout Europe, and in each city he was dressed in hanbok. And I gotta say, that is one heck of a vacation. You guys jealous at all?
Very jealous, but Chinju's not jealous. She just came back from a vacation.
Yeah. Did you go to 11 cities
She was not
in 4
dressed in
different countries?
hanbok, by the way.
No, both no. Just one city.
Right. Yeah. Maybe it's a plan for next year then, or next year's vacation. I do have to say though, hanbok clothes really are so beautiful. I just wish that there were more occasions where we could just put them on and enjoy them.
Why don't you put them on tomorrow?
Or the day after. Right.
I'll work on it, you guys. Alrighty. Now, moving on to our second story. Things like shredded paper or used tea bags. It's trash, right? You just throw them in the garbage. Well, think again, because we're about to see them in a whole new light. Let's take a look. Take a look at this enormous pile of shredded paper. What a mess. Oof. Quite a cleanup job there, but the 2 artists in the video that we're watching right now see things a little bit differently. They've taken that shredded paper and look at what they're able to create. Can you guys see what it is? A 3D map of the world. Incredible.
I don't see Korea though.
Our next medium though, take a look at this. Tea bags. Now, we usually brew our tea and then throw the tea bags away. Well, this young lady, she's an artist by the name of Red Hong Yi. And what she did was to brew tea bags into different shades or colors using different temperatures or times during which she exposed the tea bags to water. And then she put them all together into a mosaic. And have a look at what she made to put on display at the Davos Forum in Switzerland last year. Isn't that incredible? Wow. All of that made with just tea bags. Can you imagine?
What is that a picture of? A man holding
It's a man brewing tea, right?
Yeah, it's a man brewing tea.
I
So
see
it's
it
a
now.
picture of a guy brewing tea and pouring it from a height, and it's made out of tea bags. And this sort of thing, again, it sort of makes me think I take so many things for granted. How many things do I throw out during the course of the day that, with a little bit of creativity, could be turned into a work of art?
Definitely. You just have to have that vision.
Just don't have the creativity?
Well, I mean, that's why we're sitting here, right? So it's you have to leave it up to the people who are doing the art to come up with the creative ideas.
Now, what I do really like about both of these works is not only the creativity and the beauty of the finished work that you can see here, but also the diligence. You know, we're often told that art is something that requires innate talent. And of course, that is something that's true. But with these people, you also see there's so much effort put into making things come together. And I do think that's something that we could all admire and learn from. Pretty incredible.
Incredible.
Alrighty, let's go on to our next story. Speaking of incredible, unless you've had plenty of practice, peeling and cutting fruit can be a rather daunting task. I'm told that knife work is actually one of the most important and one of the most difficult skills that a chef has to learn. But the people we're about to see have turned it into yet another form of art. Let's take a look. Now, let's begin with halving lemons. I can't believe that this guy hasn't sliced all his fingers off. Look at the speed.
That is amazing.
3 lemons per second.
A nice knife, wow.
Unbelievable. Now, we move on to the peeling. Look at this. No matter the type, size, or shape of the fruit, this guy gets it done in a
melon. Or a
Incredible.
giant lemon.
Have you guys ever tried slicing pineapples? It's a nightmare. It's so difficult to do at home. But again, look how easily he does it. Fruit in one hand, knife in the other, and in a couple seconds. Now finally, to make it all look good, this master hails from right here in Korea. And I have to say, this has to involve some sort of magic. That can't just be knife work. Look at the beautiful designs he's able to make. And also look at how convenient he makes those apples to eat. Unbelievable.
He does it in a mere second.
Can you imagine how many years they would have spent just like practicing
I can't even imagine because
that.
I've been told that I'm not too bad with a fruit knife or a paring knife, especially when I'm peeling an apple or a pear or something. But in front of people like this is, as I said, it's almost like an art.
Yeah, as we call it, these guys would be labeled in Korean the darin category or the master.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. I mean, we think about kung fu masters, but you see something like this, and I, for one, think it's just as
fruit masters.
Fruit masters.
I like
it. Good one. Alrighty, let's go on to our next story now. This is a good one. Michael Bublé recently visited Korea for a concert. And I'm told he did a great job. It was a good concert. Everyone I know who went had a lot of fun. But one of the highlights was an unexpected guest who made an appearance on stage. Let's take a look.
Tonight is 174.
Now here's Michael Bublé on stage here in Korea. He's talking about what a grind the tour was for him.
And 33 countries. I have never fallen in love with a man before.
He's never fallen with a man before. The implication he has now.
I can't stop myself because there's a dude that's
and
dancing
with that,
over there.
he invites a man from the audience onto the stage. Now take a look at this. He doesn't know it's him at first, but as the realization creeps upon him, look how enthusiastic he gets as he realizes what's going on. Now, this is just a happy meeting with an artist and a fan at first, but check out what it turns into. A two-man concert, singer and dancer. Can you believe his moves?
Is he a dancer?
Well, actually, I mean, obviously he is. Maybe not professional,
not a professional one.
But look at what he can. And can you imagine just being put on the spot to perform in front of an enormous audience with one of your favorite artists singing for you?
It's just pressure. Can you imagine?
And look how
he's not a
enthusiastic he
professional
gets.
dancer.
It looks like he was just waiting for it to happen.
Well, it happened, and I just had word that he actually became an official dancer on the Bublé tour.
There he was. He introduced himself as Ji-gwang, and what a guy. I can't help but express my admiration for being able to be put on the spot like that and dance so enthusiastically.
I bet you Young would have done something like that.
Maybe. So next, what is it called? The Bublé concert. Why don't you and I dress up in hanboks, go on stage, and try to do it?
It sounds like a wonderful plan, but again, the only problem is, as I've mentioned before, the only dance that I'm capable of.
The log dance.
The log.
That's right.
Oh, you can do better than that.
I'll work on it. I'll work on it. Alrighty, that's it for me this week with the Viral Feed, but don't worry, I'll be back next time with more. Ciao for now.
As mentioned at the top of our program, it seems that some 80% or over 80% of people here in Korea, they live in apartments, which is the reason why there are so many apartments that are all over the city of Seoul, as well as other major cities in Korea. To talk more about apartments and the evolution of We have a guest joining us this morning. Good morning, Megan Bowen.
Good morning, Megan.
Good morning. Nice to see you guys again. So, yes, as you said, one of the first things I came to Korea, I can't believe it's been 3 years since I've been in Korea. That's
3
so
years?
awesome. Yeah.
You're still Kiwi.
And that's why I'm here, curious in Korea, right? So I noticed, that there are so many apartment buildings. That was one of the first things I noticed when I first came to Korea. And not just that they're apartments, but people have a very positive, view of apartments. Whereas, in America, we do have apartments as well, but usually just in major cities.
And people want to purchase a house.
Right, they want a house. So apartments don't have a negative, view, but people are like, I want to live in a house. It's like coming up. So I really wanted to investigate Korean people's positive outlook on apartments. So let's take a look at the report. Many visitors from abroad cite the endless apartment buildings in Seoul as the first thing they notice about the city, just as I did. The buildings can be so enormous. And according to a survey in the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, over 50% of all homes in Korea are apartments. So everywhere you look around Korea, there are so many apartments. And everyone I've talked to really enjoys their life in their apartments. So let's go and find out why. So what are the pros of living in an apartment?
일단 관리가 편하죠. 난방, 관리비, 기타 이런 것도 굉장히 편하죠. 가족들 염려 없고
깔끔하고
난방이 잘 돼 있고
주택보다는 편리하고 편하고.
Most of the respondents cited convenience as a primary advantage of apartments, and it's true, and it's clear that there are plenty of convenient features. So I decided to go and meet someone who could show me what's so great about apartments in more detail.
안녕하세요.
My guide was Miss Choi Jung-hee, a homemaker currently living in an apartment in Suwon. The apartment appeared to be quite conventional. I asked her why was it her choice to live in an apartment.
I used to live in single detached dwellings and I grew accustomed to them, so I didn't really prefer apartments. But people told me apartments are more convenient and safer for raising children.
That was the first reason she brought up.
집에서 이렇게 좀 흐리긴 하지만 이렇게 애들 노는 모습이 이렇게 잡히면 안심도 되고.
Moms can keep an eye on their kids by assessing closed-circuit cameras throughout the apartment complex. Miss Choi's family owns 2 cars, and she says parking space is another great advantage.
When I lived in a single-family home, there wasn't enough parking space, and this led to several disputes between neighbors. Sometimes we had to circle the neighborhood searching for a parking space. But in the apartment complex, each unit is assigned parking space.
Ms. Choi also explained the food waste system. Each unit is billed according to however much waste they generate. It's easy to check at a glance, which helps to reduce the waste overall.
When I lived in single houses, stray cats often rummaged through the food waste and it was very messy. Now I don't have to worry about that, so it's more sanitary. I've lived in villas, single dwellings, and this apartment. The apartment is best when it comes to convenience and safety. Especially for moms with kids, the apartment is most preferable.
So when was it that Koreans began to transition to apartments? I'm told it was back in the 1960s when urbanization began to gain speed.
Urbanization stood at around 30% in the 1960s and it's reached 90% now. The population grew from 20 million to 50 million in that time. 60% of that increased population reside in urban areas, and it became necessary to develop homes in large quantities and rapidly. So after Korea's independence, the Jongnam apartments were built. In the 1960s, the Mapo apartments. That's when modern apartment units started to become more widespread.
The earliest apartments actually weren't at all popular, but things changed after apartments were built in Yongsan in 1968 for high-ranking public officials and foreigners. Western-style bathrooms and indoor plumbing and central heating were implemented, and the convenience was highly desirable. So starting then, people began to see apartments as homes for the middle class or higher. The floor plans for apartments back then were different from what we're used to now.
Apartments built for upper-class residents included rooms for housekeepers or drivers, but with that sort of demand diminishing and more of the general public moving into apartments, the floor plans transformed into what we're familiar with now.
This is a typical floor plan from the 1980s. And in the 90s, the rooms were moved to face south, allowing for more natural light and ventilation. And in the new millennium, the new floor plans became more varied, offering more choices for the residents.
And the nanny's room.
The return value of apartments is important. Single dwellings can't realistically be sold in a short period of time, so their prices often drop. In contrast, apartments can be expected to return their value in the long term.
A major factor in Koreans' preference for apartments is the fact that they can be a way to increase property value in a relatively short period of time. And as you can see, the value of apartments has risen far more than that of a common meal of jjajangmyeon noodle over the years.
Who made the comparison? An interesting survey.
And also in the past decade, major conglomerates entered the apartment construction market, setting off brand competition. So this sparked the trend of high-end apartments. Most of the advertising material at the time implied that purchasing an apartment was a prerequisite for climbing the social ladder.
They do have some really nice real estate when it comes to apartments these days with the premium launchings.
Right, they sure do.
Different brands, too.
Yeah. So here's one at Lotte. But these days, most people who do purchase homes still prefer apartments, and especially popular apartments that can be modified depending on the individual's tastes.
This premium apartment is south-facing and there is plenty of light. It's designed to be very convenient for homemakers, so I'm satisfied.
And unlike in the past, there's a growing number of one-person households these days, so smaller apartments are also gaining popularity. Built-in designs make use of hidden spaces so that the residents can enjoy flexibility in furniture layout and storage. And another recent trend is the inclusion of community facilities like walking paths, fitness centers, and indoor golf facilities. Workout facilities offered at low prices have become must-have for apartment residents.
Oh, that's so cool. There's even a golfing place where you can come and practice golfing and they teach you golf. That's so cool.
These community facilities are especially popular because they're open only to the apartment residents.
모든 시설이 잘 갖춰져 있고 단지 안에 있어서 편하고
우선 시간도 절약되고
우리가 아무런 부담 없이 할 수 있는 거고.
It seems like Korean people really love apartments and they'll probably love them for years to come. But from apartments in the past, the new apartments have seemed to improve so much, and I look forward to seeing how much they'll continue to improve to cater to the needs of Korean people in years to come. So much like the Korean economy, which achieved an enormous success over a short period of time, Korea's apartments have also experienced rapid growth, and now they've taken their place as an indispensable part of life in Korea.
So it's safe to say that urbanization was probably one of the prime reasons why there are so many apartments in the area. And the popularity of apartments, the increase of that, probably happens to be the facilities and the never-ending evolution of these apartments to suit the tenants' needs.
Right, and I think, it makes so much sense when you think about, having such a high density of population in certain areas in the cities. You can't really expand outward, so you have to expand upward and become more convenient. So that makes sense, we're comparing in the United States, we're, 98 times bigger than Korea, so we have the space, so we tend to, grow outwards instead of upwards in that way. And we do have apartments, but most people live in the suburbs versus living, in big, dense cities.
Right. And according to a recent survey, nearly 7.7 million individuals in Korea own at least one apartment.
At least one.
Right. And considering that Korea's population stands at around 50 million, that means, and assuming that an average family consists of 4 people, that means 6 out of 10 households own apartment in Korea.
Wow.
It's quite a number there.
That is such a large number.
Yeah, it sure is, right? Now, apartments, no wonder they keep growing, you know, like you said, upwards, and also it keeps on spreading.
Right.
But at the same time, I think I want to wonder, since you come from the United States, in New York, they have these like high-rise apartments that are on sale, right? But where I come from, California, most of the apartments are just for rent, right? They're not for sale.
True.
If you were to live here, I mean, if you're going to stay here for a lot longer, would you be willing to, I mean, would an apartment be an option for you?
I think I would, just because of the amount of facilities there. Like, I feel like, you know, in America, we have, you know, subdivisions. So it's kind of similar to the communities that are built in the apartment complexes here, except instead of being in apartment buildings, everybody just has their houses and their lawns and their regulations on, you know, the color of your house. And there are lots of facilities like gyms and pools and things like that as well. So I do like that, you know, facility in the apartments. And one thing that is cool, I like the verandas in all the apartments and the windows and things like that, because it's so bright and open. And actually in America, if you hang dry your clothes in some apartments, there's like a fine for that. Like, you're not allowed to do that. So I love the verandas in the apartments. So I probably would move.
And these verandas in Korean apartments are really becoming multi-purpose, and many of the families are making use of that space, that balcony, and they're turning it into a garden, indoor garden, to give it a more natural environment.
They farm their own food in there.
Exactly, tomatoes there too. Families with kids also, turn the verandas into playrooms, and look at that, kids just having fun, right? And some newlyweds convert the veranda into a home bar and use that space, make the most out of that space.
That is beautiful.
Right? And some people have little pools for the kids, just like a small with tube pools. You know, it's a great use of that space that could be of no use really. Right?
I would put in a luxury spa.
A luxury spa.
But other neighbors can see you through the windows.
That's
true. Is that part of the appeal?
Just get some big blinds.
Who knows?
Or maybe they'll look at you there and then turn away quickly, so you don't have to worry.
Maybe I want them to look at me.
I think if I was that neighbor, I would.
No, of course with swimsuits on, I wouldn't be out there naked.
Oh, okay. The visual in my mind.
Don't visualize this stuff. What's the matter with you?
It's a morning show.
All right, but one thing that I did notice too is they're trying to do things like have energy efficiency as well. So there's even some apartments that have, you know, solar energy, which is really awesome because you can even save, you know, money on energy.
And there's an apartment that an elevator is installed, but this elevator is requires no energy costs at all, because it generates and store energy when it goes down, and then it uses that energy when it goes up again.
It's like a hybrid vehicle.
I was imagining someone pulling the ropes.
Just
like
the residents pulling the ropes.
That's a really good idea.
And speaking of having small communities within these apartments, there's a great volunteer groups that for a child rearing, for example, some mom would pick up all the kids in that apartment and, you know, have them give them snacks and keep them at home safe and sound until other moms come home and pick them up. So that's a great, really one of the benefits of living in an apartment.
That's really awesome. And I hear too that there's kind of a system similar to what we have in America, homeowners association.
It's the community.
Right. So there's also, you know, those type of things in Korea too, where they vote on representatives to like take care of things. So if there's problems like neighbors bathing outside in the spa, you can tell them and they can try and regulate that.
Lodge a complaint there.
I said I would wear a swimsuit.
Still, it's not going to be a pretty sight in any case.
Okay. But anyhow, when you see the evolution of the apartments that has been going through, you know, fitness centers, all that stuff, you don't have to go to a private fitness center. You can just go ahead and go to one that's run with the regular monthly fees that everyone pays on itself. So the sense of community in an apartment, that is also something that makes it a lot more attractive as well. Thank you for this report.
All right.
Thank you, Megan. See you next week.
Very interesting, I think, right?
All right. Well, this is where we say goodbye on this Monday morning. It's going to be a short one this week, so do hang in there.
Sure is. And the roads are slippery out there if you are in Seoul and the surrounding provinces, or the province of Gyeonggi-do. So you might want to take care if you are heading out early. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7.
Thanks for watching. Have a great day.